Hello there, and welcome to the Kyuzo Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu podcast. What a great time to be in Jiu-Jitsu at the moment. Really exciting, especially in Irish Jiu-Jitsu. There's lots of stuff going on, lots of international medals flying in, lots of events. We obviously had our major one, our Ireland BJJ major one recently, a couple of weeks ago, Ireland BJJ Invitational. I'm really excited. I'm really enthusiastic about it at the moment. And I hope to contribute a little bit more and to contribute with this podcast also. And in keeping with that, you can do your job. And your job is to like, share and subscribe this one. So I am told by Captain Algorithm that this is very, very important. That is an important thing to continue to have this podcast shared and this podcast made, I should say. Your job is to like it, share it, subscribe to whatever you're listening to this on, Spotify or YouTube. Do that. It helps us out. Thanks very much indeed for doing it. In fact, do it right now. I'm waiting. Okay. Thank you. I'll assume you did that there. Today, it's a Q&A session. Before we get into it, just a quick thank you to everybody who commented and was very nice about the David Young podcast. So, David was brilliant. Came in. I was there to talk him really. The reason that he interested me was because, of course, he is an amputee and he brings a different perspective to how he trains and how he's competed in jiu-jitsu. But I didn't realize I was going to be learning about the gang warfare inside the California penal system, about intensive bodyguard training. I didn't realize we were going to talk about everything from toxic masculinity right through to consent to pornography. He was a really interesting guy to chat to. It's a brilliant conversation, if I may say so myself, and it's well worth listening to. And would you believe, out of all of those crazy topics we talked about, the one that resonated the most and the one that people said the most about and had the most to say here in the gym in person, and those of you who commented online, was actually about the fact that he started when he was 47 and he's still training now. He's a purple belt now, and a lot of people really resonated with that. And when I listened back to that section, I realised why. Because he talks about kind of having hang-ups about training, about his own, obviously about his disability, but also in general about being like a 47-year-old man who hadn't experienced a lot of violence or anything else like that before, and to go into a training environment, initially to do MMA, even more dangerous, you'd say, than jiu-jitsu, took a huge shift from him in his mindset. And I think we can all kind of relate, you know, and especially if you're somebody who's in, I suppose, maybe thinking about getting into jiu-jitsu now, or you're thinking about getting into competition or whatever it is you're doing, that maybe you've got something there that you can relate to, you know, that you've got sort of a hang-up that you need to get over, and maybe just get over yourself. And I think that was the message that Dave was trying to get across in that one. So I really liked it. Go back and listen to it if you haven't done so already. Thank you very much to everyone who has commented before this. So thanks a lot. So what we'll do is we'll get on with our questions today. So I've got 4 questions to deal with today. I'm anti-analog. Check out my notepad. I'm tired of looking at screens when I'm recording. So first up, someone's asking that they feel more like the nail than the hammer in training. We'll talk about that first. Someone else asked about toxic online culture in jiu-jitsu and what I thought of it. Well, we'll go into that, I guess. Then what about competition versus learning environments? Is there a hardcore versus casual, and which gym should I really be thinking about? Or which type of gym should I be thinking about? We'll have a go at that. And finally, I got a long email, which was really, really funny. And I was trying to actually pull the question out of it. That's what kind of was interesting about it. But basically, someone who's struggling to go to competitions, so some struggling to make their way to competitions, keeps registering in the pre-registration categories, but then doesn't pay and doesn't do the final commitment. So we'll have a chat about that towards the end as well. All right, let's get cracking on the first question. So, I often feel like I'm more the nail than the hammer in training. Okay, so first of all, my first piece of advice is get rid of that paradigm. Don't think it's a zero-sum game. You're either the hammer or you're the nail. Now, I know that's a phrase that gets used an awful lot, and I know that it's a throwaway kind of comment that people say. It was like, well, you're either the hammer or the nail. Oh, I guess I was the nail tonight. Whoa, I was the hammer tonight. No one's ever done hammer. Did you ever notice that, actually? There's one for you. No one ever turns and goes, hey, I was the hammer tonight. No one. Everybody always says, whoa, I was the nail tonight. So chuck that out. Instead, focus on learning. So there are no medals for Wednesday nights. Just remember that. No medals for Wednesday nights. It is about training and it's about learning. Now, I know somebody's probably said that to you already, and I know probably it's been repeated online or in any number of environments to you already. People have obviously said this cliche, which is something goes something along the lines of like, the race is only with yourself. You're only in competition with yourself, but it happens to be true. That's why it's a cliche. But let's get more practical advice out of that, right? So, I feel like more like I'm the nail than the hammer. Well, first of all, that implies that the competition is on that night. So that implies, the implication is that there is a nail-hammer relationship here that has to be achieved. Someone has to be the nail, someone has to be the hammer on any given night. So I bet if you walk up to the coach, your coach, whoever he is, and say, hey, is that what you want out of the class tonight? Do you want me to be the nail? Is that what you want me? Or do you want me to be the hammer? Which one do you prefer me to be the hammer? I bet he'd look at you like you had two heads. I bet he'd say something along the lines of, no, we're learning the omoplata tonight. We're not learning how to be the hammer or the nail or anything else. We're not setting up a contest. So take that out of your own dictionary as well. There's no winners, there's no losers. There is only learning. So this is something actually I got fairly early on. I think I'm one of the lucky ones because I am quite competitive, like everybody else, and I don't like to lose and I don't like to suck. But I did kind of get the concept, especially because I was kind of more experienced around Taekwondo, and I'd already been starting to coach really Taekwondo when I started Jiu-Jitsu. So I already kind of understood the concept of training and the ideas around it. So I'm going to introduce you to a phrase. It's learning outcome. And this is what I say to my coaches all the time. I'm like, stick to the learning outcome. So it's not what you're teaching, it's what you want people to know by the end of the class. That's important. And for you, the student, it's not what you're learning, it's what you want to know by the end of the class. That's the point. So let's take a real traditional class where you're coming in maybe at a beginner level or at a white belt level, and you're learning the Kimura. And maybe you're learning how to change the Kimura into the armbar. Okay. Simple, right? So the learning outcome of that class is that by the end, you're able to appreciate and understand the Kimura into the armbar, and you're able to do it on, first, a non-resisting partner, secondly, a semi-resisting partner, and finally, on a resisting partner. Now, you'll definitely get the first element. You might get some of the second element. And if you're weaker, older, less athletic than your opponents, or having a bad day, or it's something that you can't really get your head around, you might not get the last element. But you'll have got some degree of success and some degree of understanding of how to turn the Kimura into the armbar by the end of the class. You will have succeeded somewhat in your learning outcome. Your learning outcome is not who won training. Your learning outcome was, do I know a little bit more about the Kimura and how I can turn the Kimura into the armbar if it fails? That's the outcome. That's what you went there on Tuesday night to get. You didn't go in there to go, who will be the strongest? Who will survive this session? Who will come out on top? That's maybe one session a year. If you're, going for belts, or you're doing Shark Tanks, or if you're doing a tournament, that's obviously the way it is. But if you're going in to learn Jiu-Jitsu and to develop skills, well then why would you consider yourself a hammer or a nail? Instead, think, I am a student who is improving slowly but surely over time. And I think once you get that in your head, you can stop thinking about, I need to win, or I'm a failure because I keep getting tapped, or I'm a wonderful success, which is the other part of it. I'm a brilliant success because I'm tapping everyone. So if you're the hammer in every room, then you're probably not a very good trainer. You're probably not very good, because the reason for that is you're not putting yourself in difficult positions and you're not being challenged. So I wouldn't worry about it. I'd worry more if you came to me and said, I'm the hammer all the time. I'd be like, okay, you're an idiot. But you're not an idiot. You're obviously thinking about your training quite a bit, and that's quite good. So I would say, yeah, drop that idea. Drop the whole concept. Just say, I'm here to learn. I'm here to succeed or fail at what the thing it is that we're doing that night. That's all. And if I succeed, then I've learned. Perfect. If I fail at it repeatedly, well, at the very least, I've learned ways that I'm going wrong, and I can fix those in the future. And if you kind of get that idea in your head, well, I think you'll do a lot better, and I think you'll enjoy training an awful lot more as well. Okay, next question. What about toxic online culture in BJJ? I said that in a specific voice because first of all, I know it exists. I'm just not involved. So, if you find, here's my best advice for anything, and you'll find it really hard to follow because I find it really hard to follow. If you see something that annoys you, mute it. If you see something you love, like it, and before you know it, things that you love about jiu-jitsu will be on your Instagram or Twitter timelines. And things that irritate you will stop being there. So I just don't get involved. I'm sorry to really shorten this question quite a lot. I don't get involved. I block anything that annoys me. If somebody's out there complaining about whatever it is, about having to wear a certain type of rash guard, or whether something should be 2 points or not 2 points or anything like that, I just don't listen. There's a very difference between toxicity, by the way, and just online banter and online discussion of events and things like that. So I think I was saying, I did a podcast with Emerald Grappling Podcast, so you can go there if you want to listen to it. And the host asked a question about criticisms and, criticisms of Ireland BJJ, which I run a course as well. And I said, look, that's normal, you know. At the end of the day, I would be worried if people weren't criticising, because it would mean they weren't passionate about it. So there's a very big difference between somebody saying, what do you think? Was this a score or was this not a score? And one team chiming in and saying, definitely 2 points. Yes, the referee was absolutely correct. And then the other team, chiming in and saying, there's no way that was 2 points. Look, that happens all the time. Offside or not offside in football. Was it a score or was it not a score in rugby? Should that have been a high tackle? Should it not have been a high tackle? Was the ball in or out? These things are the things that make sport great, which is, that we all have an opinion on it. We all get passionate about it. And we all want our side to do the best. And, I love that about sport. I love it. People commenting and chatting about it, and that's amazing, right? It's our passion, it's what we do. But at some point or other, there has to be a line that we don't cross, which is that we don't cross it into, for example, criticising officials, which I despise, and I wipe out of my culture here. You're not allowed to criticise a referee here. You're not allowed to criticise an official. Your job, if you are the training here, is to worry about your own performance and worry about who you are and what you do. So there's a line that we can cross, we shouldn't cross, into that kind of personal attacks, ad hominem attacks and things like that. We shouldn't cross into that. But healthy online debate, yeah, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I think probably what you're referring to is people who run Instagram accounts and talk shit about people. I don't give them oxygen. When the old boards.ie forums were about, it was just, you used to say, just don't feed the trolls. Some people just like it that way. They enjoy it. And I heard a phrase from Dylan Moran there. I read about it on Sunday, and he was saying it's like there's some people who will cross the road to step in dog shit just so they have something to complain about. That's just the way it is. Just don't get involved in it. Just don't even comment. Give it no oxygen. Block it. Mute it. Do whatever you want to do. That's that. Sorry if it's short. Okay. Competition versus learning environments. Should I go for a hardcore gym or a casual environment when I'm looking to train? So I don't think those two are mutually exclusive, by the way, but I kind of get the question. You're asking about sort of like whether you should go to a really competitive gym or a casual gym and what I think about the two. The first thing is I think some gyms they get called, and I'm doing the quote marks here, casual, aren't all that casual. They just don't go to tournaments. So they're very, very dedicated to learning the art and the art of jiu-jitsu, sometimes for self-defense, sometimes for sport, whatever it is, but aren't necessarily highly competitive. And then there are other gyms which take competition extremely seriously, and that's almost like their modus operandi, right? So this is just horses for courses. It's just up to you what you want to do. If you're a young competitive athlete who wants to really go get medals, you probably would say, all right, go and find that competitive gym that you want to go and train a sport with. Whereas if you're older, maybe that environment might still suit you. It's not necessarily a choice between the two. The thing that I think, because I know your name, and I vaguely, sorry, the person who's asking the question, not very well, but I know that you're probably asking from a general point of view. So what I would say is, and I know, sorry, that you already do jiu-jitsu. So what I would say is that if you are somebody who's in a less than competitive gym, so a less competitive gym, so guys in are maybe a lot of masters or maybe a lot more casual trainers, the gym is more family oriented and it's not very competitive. You don't have to leave that gym to go and be competitive. What you can do is keep that as your home gym. You're still your team, your family, the people who started coaching you, and you can go and train in more competitive environments as you see fit. You can be in two gyms. So, for example, you could travel to another gym to get your competition training done there, but still keep a couple of classes and a couple of sessions a week or a month even in your regular gym. So in the gym that you grew up with, and still contribute there. So it's not like you have to, you're not leaving the Hells Angels. We're not motorbike gangs. We don't have to have like one or the other. We can have both. And some gyms do have both. They have a very competitive environment in one or two classes, one or two groups, and they have a less competitive stream in another. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be one or the other. But like I say, if you are training at a gym where you're going around, looking around, you're going, I don't think I can achieve here what I want to achieve, which is getting a lot of medals. The first thing I would do is talk to your coach. Don't go talking online. Don't go talking shit to like people. Oh, they're not really good enough for me there. I'm not getting good roles. I'm not getting good partners, which is I've heard for 25 years. Instead, talk to your coach and say, look, I don't think I'm getting what I want to get out of this. Like, what do you think? How can we work together as coach and student, coach and athlete to make me better? Can you do it here? Or will I go and just train one night a week in another gym to try and, boost myself? But it doesn't have to be this kind of like, I got to leave my team because I'm not getting hard enough roles. I've had loads of people like that over the years, right? Loads, as every environment has. And what I'll say to you is that all academies go in peaks and troughs. Sometimes you have a bunch of incredibly competitive, young, gifted athletes. And then sometimes they leave or they get older or they, whatever happens. And then sometimes you look around and you say, whoa, everybody here is 35 plus suddenly in my classes and a little bit older and have more concerns with wives and families and kids and careers. And it's not so competitive anymore. And that's fine. It just goes in waves, and the wave will come back around. At the moment in my academy here, there's a new wave coming through of young guys, and it just so happens that we're not quite at a peak, but I can smell that we're on our way up towards a higher peak. Probably for the last couple of years, we've been in a kind of a more casual, I won't say a trough because that's insulting. It's just been a little bit easier going on the competitive front. Just a bit handier. People have been not as competitive, and that's fine. It just comes and goes for an academy like us. For other academies, it's go all the time, and they're always trying to entice new competitors and new people in. And what you'll find in those academies is they recruit, or not recruit, but other people are pulled into that academy from outside to go into that environment. And that's fine too. It doesn't have to be, like I say, like a motorbike gang. We're not all getting tattoos on our arms and saying, Bloods and Crips. Some of us are just out there enjoying ourselves and getting the most out of our career. So if you are looking to try and think about, well, I want to be in a more hardcore gym, maybe you don't have to leave your current one. Maybe you don't. Maybe you can just, talk to your coach and just have a chat about it and tell him what your goals are and be more communicative. Okay, last question today. I'm struggling to go to competitions. This was the long email that I told you about. This was really funny. I really appreciated it, by the way. I won't mention your name because I won't embarrass you, but I really appreciated the email. I thought it was a great laugh, actually. So I'm struggling to go to competitions. I continuously register, but then don't pay. Pre-register, that is, but then don't pay for the competitions. I lose my nerve, and sometimes I just don't bother my arse. Literally what he said there. Completing the payment. Any advice? Well, let's call you Jim. It's not your real name. Jim, you are, I would say, bearing in mind that I see the back end of tournament registrations, you are about 30% of the population. So in any given tournament, about 30% of people register but don't pay, so they don't complete the payments. They don't get over the final hurdle. Now that can be for any number of reasons. Maybe they get a better offer, maybe they just pencil it in and say, I've got something actually on that weekend. But about 30% of people don't actually complete and don't follow through. So that's before, by the way, people who just don't show up on the day. So they complete but just don't show up. So it's natural. What I'll say is I read some interesting research before on the effect of placing goals on social media. And I wonder, is it the same thing? So if, for example, you say in February, right, the Dublin Marathon's in October, and in February you post on the internet, I'm going to train and run the Dublin Marathon in October. What happens is your brain rewards you for just posting the goal. It gives you a little hit and you go, I feel good about myself. I gave myself that little dopamine punch that I wanted by putting that goal out publicly. And as a result then, some people are less likely to do it. So you'll think that by putting it down on paper or putting it down on the internet and for everybody to see, that you would be more inclined to do it. But apparently the opposite can be true. You can actually go, oh, well, I got what I wanted out of that. Your brain says, well, we got our reward, so we're happy enough with that. So maybe don't pre-register. Maybe say, I'm only going to log on and click on when I'm ready to pay, when I'm ready to really commit. At that diving board moment, that I'm all in. I'm not half in, I'm all in. I'm going to pay, register, and then train. What has occurred to me, from speaking to other coaches about this, it is a common phenomenon. Lots of people will compete. So if I gave you a tournament to do tomorrow, you would probably do it. But most people won't commit 6 weeks to training. So the issue is training. And I remember I was going to say a great fighter. He was a great guy in MMA years ago. A great guy. And if I told him there was a fight on Saturday night, he'd be there. But if I told him there was a fight in 8 weeks, he wouldn't be there. So he wouldn't show up to training and he wouldn't do it. And eventually he said to me, just the idea, the constant goal, the nerves for 8 weeks, I just can't do it. He said, but if you gave it to me tomorrow, if you told me the fight is in half an hour, I'd do it. But I just can't do 8 weeks of anticipation. And I suppose we can all understand that, right? We can understand that as a feeling, as an emotional kind of thing. But the reality is that that's where the work gets put in, and that's the actual real thing for most people out there training. The competition itself is just the end point, and it's the cherry on the cake. The 8 weeks of training for a tournament, of doing your camp, that's when you'll really improve. You'll learn so much, and your commitment to that and to the people around you who maybe are going for the tournament at the same time, it's a brilliant feeling, and it's a great thing to do, and a great thing to be able to do together with your teammates. And then you all head off to the tournament that day, and you win or you lose, and that's a great thing as well that you've done as a unit, as a community. So I would encourage you then, if you are one of those people out there, is just commit 100%. Push all your chips on the table on the day that you're doing it. Don't do the pre-registration. You might just be giving yourself that little fake dopamine hit that I spoke about earlier. And instead, commit 100%. And my ma used to say to me all the time, if you enlist, you must soldier. And that's something that I say to a lot of my athletes now. I'm like, nope, get all in there. Go. Enlist right now. And don't leave anything behind. Burn the boats. Make sure that you're going to get on the mat in 8 weeks' time or whatever it is. And you have total commitment. Okay, that's us for the day. A short little episode for you there, just about, where are we doing? We're about half an hour? Yeah, we're about 25 minutes. So thanks very much again. And listen, thanks very much for all of your comments and questions that you've sent in previously. Remember to like and subscribe. That's 100% your most important job now. You've listened to the podcast, so now do the like and subscribe thing. We'll be back with another interview really, really soon. Can't tell you too much about that. There's a few on the table, a few on the cards. Other than that, guys, thanks very much for watching and listening today, and we'll catch you soon. I'll see you on the mat.